pleasure pavilion or something which would have been exclusively for royal use probably, yeah? Now this could be a pleasure pavilion or maybe something where you would review the troops around you, yeah? Or maybe both, yeah? Because if you have your public hall of public audience right there, it wouldn't be difficult to assume that some sort of a public activity like reviewing troops, like reviewing gifts, horses, etc. might have been carried out from here.
And there's these holes.
These huge holes you see on the floor, again guesswork here, probably held some sort of a pillar which would have a cover.
A canopy or something.
Yeah. So this wouldn't have been, sheer fall from the edges.
Right.
Some sort of a canopy to provide a covering, and of course you need pillars to
Right.
hold that canopy. So small and big pillars and two access ways. Now it's a little hard to imagine the king squeezing his way up here, and even if it was a pleasure pavilion. So there is evidence of a ramp sort of a thing which might lead you to the higher level. But it's not covered, it's mostly gone. The ramp would have been just where the grass ends. Yeah, that edge. And it would have continued further up, but you can't really see it now. Simply because it's covered in grass and it's half gone. But once we are out, you can see evidence of a ramp. It's half still there. Yeah, it's still there, just outside. It's almost part of the boundary now, so it's hard to distinguish, but it is there. So it's a guess that some sort of an easier access might have been there for royal use rather than those tiny stairs. Yeah, it's okay for laymen like us, but obviously not for the king. Come. The dome enclosure, that's the Begumpur Masjid over there. And that's where we'll be going after this. Come. Okay. Okay, now the features we didn't talk about when we started. One is this curiously domed building, standalone building. We don't know much about it, so it is called the Curious Domed Building, yeah? So that's what its name is. And the graveyard where we started off from, highway. You find these everywhere. I mean, it's not even a regional thing. It's not only in North India. You find it everywhere in the highways. I'm not an expert on this, so I can't really say what it means here in this specific context. But it seems a very, very common form of a shrine. And it's not, I don't think it's particularly sectarian, belonging to any particular faith.
But who comes here and all that and lights these candles?
Locals, there's a village Begumpur around
Begumpur,
here.
yeah.
So locals here, Kalu Sarai.
Kalu Sarai,
Yeah, so residents, locals.
Yeah, okay.
They come here.
And why would they come here and do this? I mean, what do they say?
The worship of the Sufi saint, is it?
What I'm telling you is more like what's accepted history,
Yeah.
but local practice might have nothing to do with it.
Okay.
So in local practice, I'm sure all of you have observed, if I put a shrine-like structure under a
correct.
tree,
Yeah,
it
true.
will soon acquire some sort of a
Status.
religious importance.
That's true. Yeah.
Irrespective of who you are, whether you know me or not,
Correct. Yes.
or which religion you belong to, you might just bow your head as you pass. And over a period of time, it might just acquire some sort of a relevance and importance. My opinion is that many of these shrines are of this nature. And people don't really have to know who is buried here, but some sort of a Baba. Yeah, some sort of a Baba, Peer Baba, some sort of a
Same thing.
saint here. Yeah. So in local practice, I think that usually suffices in terms of
What project did you do?
Sheikh Hassan Tahir.
Hassan.
Yes. This is the Begumpur Masjid, and this is where we'll end our walk, but not before a lot of climbing to be done. Yeah. I'll talk a little bit about why they think this mosque was built, who built it, and I've been saying that there's a bit of a debate here. Now, one version is that this is the main congregation mosque for the city of Jahanpana, the one we've just been to. So like we have the Jama Masjid today for the Shah Jahanabad city, similar, and that's the principal congregation mosque there. Similarly, this would have been the principal congregation mosque in the city of Jahanpana way back when Tughlaq II was in power. So that's why when I mentioned the architect, the poet Chach mentions Al-Jayush as the fellow who is the chief architect and a fairly big important guy, and important enough to be mentioned in the poetry for the king himself. So if this was built during Muhammad Tughlaq's time, then it's a good guess that Al-Jayush is the fellow responsible as the architect for this edifice. The second version for this mosque is that this is built by during Firoz Shah's time. Firoz Shah is Tughlaq III, yeah, the successor of Tughlaq II. And Firoz Shah's capital city is at Kotla, where we have the cricket stadium. So right next to it, there's a small citadel left. That was where his city was. Now, during Firoz Shah's time, he himself was a prolific builder. And his nobility also has built a lot, not only in Delhi, but in area around Delhi as well. So in Delhi, there are considered, people have identified 7 mosques, 7 large mosques, almost as big as this, which are said to have been built by the prime ministers of Firoz Shah. Now there are 2 fellows of importance here. It's a father and son duo. The first guy, his name is Khane-Jahan Telangani. Telangani from the word Telangana. Telangana, you'll know is the region way south. So he was from that region.
Deccan more than south.
Yeah. And he's from that region. He's a convert from Hinduism. He's a convert into Islam, and he still has relatives who are Hindu. So this fellow is the prime minister of Tughlaq III, Firoz Shah Tughlaq, and he's a very, very powerful chap. His tomb is now in Nizamuddin. It's mostly inaccessible, but it is there. And this fellow is so powerful as the prime minister that Firoz Shah himself calls him the king of Delhi. So he's obviously a very, very big name. He is the prime minister for a very, very long time and is succeeded by his son, Khajaha Junan Shah. And he too is a very, very powerful guy. So this father and son duo are the prime minister for a very long time under Tughlaq III, and the son actually is credited with patronizing a series of mosques in Delhi, one of which is this. The others are believed to be the masjid in Nizamuddin, the Kali Masjid in Old Delhi near Turkman Gate area, the masjid, the Khidki Mosque in Saket, Malviya Nagar area. So these large mosques, so there are about 7 which he is said to have built, and Begumpuri Masjid is considered one of them. That's why I said there is a debate on whether this is Muhammad Tughlaq II's time and contemporary to Jahanpana, or built by during his successor's time. So it could have been either. If it was during Muhammad II's time, the Tughlaq II's time, they say that there might have been a connection between this mosque and the palace area we have seen. Now it's all full of settlements around, like most of South Delhi, there's not an inch of space really. And in fact, the village which stands outside was once upon a time inside the mosque.
Oh, really?
Yes, so all this settlement, Begumpur village, which is today an urban village, it comes in the category of urban village, but way back where this area, this courtyard and the cloisters here was full of people. In fact, if you look at some older photographs, there are trees in the courtyard as well. So it was a settled area, and in the 1920s, sometime in the 1920s, this was vacated by the Archaeological Survey of India. So that's when the village went outside and this area was emptied.
So is this functional mosque today?
No. People like us who come, and of course the locals for kite flying and generally chilling out.
Kanika, were these like areas where they would set up market stalls under the cloisters, like back then?
Typically such things are around a mosque rather than inside.
Okay.
But this is more like an architectural style. But market could be immediately outside, like very much in the Jama Masjid area.
Right.
These are more like verandas, right?
Yeah. There need not be any rooms. Oh, they would have made partitions within these areas. The covered areas, they would have used wood, maybe even cement and bricks to create partitions and their own living space.
So it must have been a massive courtyard.
Yes, yes.
Really prayer ground.
That's really different.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is actually, there's much more to this mosque than you see here. We're going through a very, very narrow passage into another room-like area, which was believed to be the separate prayer hall for women. And through it, we'll climb up and go up there. You can see that it's a separate portion which has been carved out within the larger area of the mosque. This is believed to be a separate prayer hall for women.
They had to come to this narrow place.
Probably.
They were so thin and small, all the way ladies.
Yes. Come, so some more climbing through narrow staircases and then we'll be up on the terrace.
concrete, yeah?
It's cement mortar.
Yeah, but I think that should be the fundamental one. It seems to be the nature of architecture here.
But it wasn't without plaster ever.
But maybe between stones, not all over it.
That's there, you know.
Speculation, right?
No, the thing is, whenever you build, this is of course your basic masonry for a wall or anything. But your walls are never bare. Very much like our homes now, except that we use bricks. So your walls are always plastered over. We now don't see them plastered, and we like our ruins like this. You know, yeah. So it's also a way we've always been seeing our ruins. So, in fact, if you see a newly restored building, they often have this pink plaster, pink and orangish kind of a surface, which doesn't look nice. I never liked it, but apparently that's the done thing, because when these buildings were in use, they were active places where people lived and not monuments. That's how they might have looked like.
Okay.
So that's what the conservators say, that when we conserve, we try and come back to the way these were. And then over a very short period, that plaster will again go black. So you have to regularly maintain it. Very much like you whitewash your own homes every Diwali. Yeah? Same logic. Yeah.
But Kanika, I agree with you, they should not be restored with the plaster and all that. But I don't know if you saw the dome, they had the things hanging, the stone bricks were hanging. That could be very dangerous.
It is.
At any given time.
Absolutely, that's absolutely, yeah.
Those are the things you need to strike to them.
Absolutely, I don't like bricks hanging over my head.
I'm gonna assign you the job.
Okay, so the idea here is to climb up further, and there are various ways of going it. So, so you are free to explore on your own as well. So there are a couple of entrances over here, around the dome as well.
दूसरी तरफ भी है इधर.
So feel free. And because if everybody is at one entrance only, it's going to be a traffic jam there.
Are you going to keep a head count?
No. Nobody's getting. Yeah. Conclude what we've been talking about all this while. Let me get somewhere in the middle so that everybody can hear me. So just to wrap up what we've been talking about, our sources and lack of information and the kind of people who have commented on Jahanpana and the city around, I've been constantly talking about Ibn Battuta and his travelogues. And I mentioned earlier that it's not really an official document as such. Yeah, it's peppered with lots of his personal insights and what he felt about people, what he sees, and what he is fascinated by. So he mentions all kinds of things like seeing a rhino in the Punjab area. He mentions the samosa. Yeah, so samosa finds mention in his travels. It's called the samosak. And it's a non-veg samosa actually. It's
like sambusak.
Samosak, yeah.
Is that what you're going to feed us today?
No.
What, the non-veg samosas?
Rhino. There are no rhinos, so no
Or rhino samosas.
to match. So this samosa is all, full of minced meat, almonds and raisins and dry fruits and fried in ghee. He mentions pan. He mentions pan, betel leaf, after a meal. He also witnesses a sati. Burning of the widow after the husband's death. So he witnesses a sati also, and he is quite aghast by it. He mentions all the drama.
Does he mention the family, etc., names, etc.?
No,
Nothing. He
no.
just talks
He's an
about the
observer
sati.
only, yeah. So he doesn't.
And which year is his reflections coming from?
This is
14th
no,
century.
this is 14th century.
14th century.
1334 till about 1340 something, yeah. And he mentions the sati. He's talking about all his interactions with the king and how he treats his people. I've already mentioned that he says that the king's court is never without a person enraged or a person being killed. Yeah, so that continuously happens. And he describes one of his meals with the king. He goes to the Hazar Sutun, the palace of 1,000 pillars, where he has an audience with the king along with a few other people, and he has lunch. The king is eating and he invites everybody else to eat with him, which is a big deal. You don't really get state invitations back then. So he mentions this, and then he says that everybody, after finishing the meal, we all walked out and sat outside the Hazar Sutun, but I could not sit because I had a boil on my bum. So I had great difficulty sitting, and he's quite unhappy about it. And he actually writes that I just couldn't sit and I was very uncomfortable. So you see, it's a very personal travelogue.
That's what happens if we eat rhino samosa.
He also mentions women of the royal family, in particular the mother of the Sultan. Typically, when you study history, whether it's ancient, medieval, at least you don't hear of women. Yeah, you don't know many women from these times. In this case, there are no names given, but the mother of the Sultan seems to be a fairly important character. In fact, when the shifting of this capital took place for Muhammad, he shifts the capital from Delhi bag and baggage to Daulatabad. It's said that he also sent as a sign of confidence in this scheme, he sent off his mother, leading, you could say, almost leading a delegation.
Right.
He also sent off Sufis from here, told them, you go all the way to Deogir, Daulatabad, settle there and just, it's a PR. It's a PR, policy. So he's making sure that this thing has acceptability among his wider subjects. So as part of his PR, his mother was sent with lots of pomp and show to when the shifting of capital took place. Yeah. So lots of interesting information about what this guy notes. And Ibn Battuta, much to his discomfort, he was made a Qazi of Delhi. Now this fellow is like, look, I have never been here. I absolutely have no idea about your norms of jurisprudence. Ibn Battuta is a Malik. There are schools of jurisprudence in Islam, what we call mazhab. So mazhab in our common lingo denotes religion, but actually that's not the case. Mazhab are schools of jurisprudence within Islam. And South Asia particularly follows the Hanafi school of thought. Yeah? So now Ibn Battuta has no experience in this, and he's from a Maliki background, and he suddenly made the Qazi of Delhi. And he's really scared that if I do anything wrong, the king might just chop off my head. Yeah, because that's the kind of king he has. One day he's really happy, he's inviting you to have lunch with him. The other day, he might not like you and you might be dead. So he's extremely uncomfortable, and it's with rather great difficulty that he manages to wriggle his way out, and then he finally leaves. He's like, I'm going for good, please forgive me, and he's off. So it's a very interesting account. And
So how long was he here in Delhi?
it was around 1334 till about 41, I think, or 44.
Did he then go to
7-8 years.
Southeast Asia? He also goes to China, right?
He goes to China as well, yeah.
From here.
From here, yeah.
In fact, he is credited with introducing Islam in China.
Really?
He is what created with?
Credited with introducing Islam in China.
Oh, really?
Acha, I didn't know
Because
that.
it's that Xinjiang province in the northwest.
No, not that portion. He goes through the sea road, doesn't he?
Okay.
Acha, huh.
He also goes to Lucknow, right?
Lucknow.
Awadh, after the...
He is in the northern belt, yeah. So he's coming in from the Punjab area, like most travelers to India would if you're coming by land. So he describes his, journey from Punjab. Awadh, I'm not sure. Does he go that far or not? I'll have to check on that. But it's easy to check. You just Google it and it's online. It's just book.
This is actually